where we're going to discuss what's going on with electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. This news is for entertainment purposes only. Today, I want to welcome to the show Bill Moore, the founder of EV World. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, David.
All right. Well, Bill, today we're going to start off talking about this article from Business Insider, how smart money is playing the $700 billion EV boom. And this is quite interesting. This comes up a lot in conversation. China is the 800-pound gorilla of global EV supplies. It dominates the market in every way, including sales. Their export of EV sales increased 131% year over year, 680,000 vehicles. And what is it? In the first half of 2023, the Chinese sold almost 2.1 million electric vehicles. That is a big number. And I don't think people realize how many electric vehicles are being made and sold in the Chinese market.
Yeah.
I saw, I think they're 31% of Tesla's market.
Yeah, it's huge. The Tesla, of course, took advantage and saw that growth. And I should point out that not all of those are BYD and Neo and Lee and obviously Tesla. A lot of those are some of the smaller electric vehicles that are being produced over there, and vehicles that you can pick up. I guess what we would regard many in regard as low speed electric vehicles, just for running around town in urban areas, or in some cases what farmers use out for transporting crops around their village and things like that. But still, that is a significant number, made possible in large part due to what we would regard as very progressive funding policies, grant policies, and rebates and things of that nature.
So, according to this, last year's global EV markets, China accounted for 60% of all global electric car sales.
Yeah.
That is staggering that one country is 60% of electric vehicles.
Yeah, and if you would go to the where you click the article from and go to the synopsis, there's a chart there that I've included that I think people will find of interest, because it shows relative the number of sales of vehicles, on uh, regards to the U.S. and Europe and things like that.
Do you want to try to find that and see if you can show it? You
Yeah,
can share screen at the
let
bottom.
me see. I should probably clean up my screen here so you don't see all the garbage I got there.
Oh, you won't. It'll only show the actual tab you're on.
All right.
Yeah, it's not like Zoom.
Yeah, let me expand here. Come on. Okay. So share the screen, and there it is. Okay, so basically, I thought this particular image, and there's a larger one that's on my Facebook page, but this gives you, I think, a sense of how big the market China is as compared relative to the U.S. Germany, Norway, and the rest of Europe. I mean, it is definitely the gorilla in the room. So that's the chart right there. But anyway,
Hopefully,
so
the U.S. will start catching up some.
well, yeah, well, we hope, because there's a lot of jobs and pollution and things like that we need to be addressing, and this is one way for us to get there. So
Nice, nice. Well, one thing that's kind of close to home, you and I both live in the Omaha area, and
right,
we have obviously a very big Air Force presence here. And this article by Electric talks about Archer Aviation. So, an electric vertical takeoff and landing purchase contract from the U.S. Air Force worth $142 million. That's nice to see
yes,
the Air Force doing this. And I'm assuming that this type of aircraft, once again, we were talking about this before the show about the silent vehicles. I'm assuming this will be a silent aircraft.
Well, I think that's a misnomer because I think anytime you have an object whirling at near the speed of sound,
Yes.
you're going. I mean, your fan in your house is not quote silent. I mean, it does. You're disturbing air and it's going to make noise, but it is not like you and I live under the flight path of Offutt Air Force Base, and we have the reconnaissance 707, the KC-135s, the RC-135s, and from time to time we have the E-4s, the big 747s, and every now and then we have the odd fighter jets and transport planes, moving through, and they let particularly those fighter jets, the F-16s and the Super Hornets, they let they're in the area. So compared to them, of course, then we have a National Guard and they fly over occasionally with Black Hawks and things of that nature. So they're not totally silent, but I think the advantage here is the fact that you have the capabilities of a helicopter mixed with the speed and maneuverability of a conventional aircraft in one vehicle. And it's not like the Osprey where you've got big turbine engines hanging out on the tilt. This can accomplish it with just a series of multiple electric motors. So in that respect, I think they're curious because this gives them the I mean, the article talks about the fact they'd like to use it for personnel transport, they'd like to use it for logistics support, and they'd like to use it for emergency services, rescue, and things of that nature. My question is, and I haven't, to be honest, I did not look at a lot of detail on this particular aircraft. I'm assuming that it's probably a hybrid, because if they're going to get any kind of operational range out of it, they're going to need to have a turbine generator on board to generate the power that's going to be needed by those multiple electric motors that are hanging out on those appendages on the wings and things.
Well,
But it is,
maybe they're looking at some of the new solid state technology because the solid state technology on the batteries weighs less and holds more energy.
oh yeah, definitely. And that I would imagine that's part of what the Air Force is looking at, because it does say the contract is going to involve ongoing research and development and support. So my guess is that they'll start off with the first couple aircraft will probably be they could be all electric, and they just simply use them for local testing around their Aberdeen or wherever Nellis, wherever they're going to do the testing on this.
So they're going to manufacture these in Covington, Georgia. That's nice. Be good. They'll be good for
Oh
that
yeah,
market.
yep.
Let's see. Archer, the Stellantis is helping Archer to help erect its new facility, get the Midnight EVTOLs into the air by 2024. That's pretty quick.
Now we should, if Stellantis is not a name that viewers recognize, it is the consortium that controls Renault and Nissan and Chrysler and Jeep and that whole. And then I think there's I think Fiat as well. So they're a consortium that controls a number of other branded aircraft. So getting their support for a project of this nature, obviously is a feather in the cap of that company.
That's a pretty cool looking aircraft. That's a lot of
Yeah, it is, isn't
propellers.
it? Yeah.
12 propellers. Let's see. And Air Force is going to purchase 6 to start with. Let's see. They're going to help the DoD develop maintenance and repair operations under its AFW ERX Agility Prime program.
I should
Archer's been
point out,
involved since 2021.
yeah, I would think one of the reasons the Air Force is interested, because if you know anything about helicopter maintenance, you have to a helicopter is on the ground more time for maintenance than it is in the air. That's just the nature of maintaining the mechanical integrity of the aircraft. Here, when you've got just simply electric motors, that can spin at several thousand RPMs, and there are no friction moving parts and things of that nature. The maintenance on these things and the reliability and dependability of this is going to go up enormously. It'll certainly reduce military cost.
Yeah.
Um,
So
I,
our
I have, yeah, I did some research and I was looking at, to operate a Black Hawk helicopter is some number like $8,000 an hour. I mean, it's incredible, and most of that has to do with not just the jet fuel that's being pumped through the turbine, but it's all that maintenance that has to go on the aircraft. And this thing will be so dead simple that it'll be reliability will go up and maintenance will go down.
So our Archer Aviation's on the New York Stock Exchange. They've got a market cap of 1.7 billion currently, and that news, the 142 million,
That,
really they got rewarded.
yeah, help
This
the stock. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just in the last 5 days. So as of Monday, their stock shot up from $2. So that's 30% increase in the stock price. So that's a pretty good reward they got
Yeah.
out of that information. So
Yeah.
that's nice to see.
Yeah, and they're only one of a number of companies that are exploiting this area. So it's an exciting. That's why I like to put it in there because it's such an exciting. As a pilot, I'm always interested in anything that flies. So this is it's exciting to see this area beginning to mature now.
So our next one's kind of a surprise. I wasn't really planning on talking about ExxonMobil on this show, but here we are. And
That's why I posted it.
it wasn't. And when I put it in the title, I'm sure people who are watching us like, what, EV World News, ExxonMobil? We're going
Yeah.
to pump our Tesla full of gas. Yeah, but anyways, yeah,
Well, think about ExxonMobil. What do they do? Well, apart from refining, oil and gas and things of that nature, they drill, right?
yes.
And in drilling, you go down through various groundwaters and things like that. And what happens? Much of that water that comes back is in the form of very salty brine water. And that brine happens to have, depending on where you're at, a large concentration of lithium. So if you can take and find a way to pull the lithium out of that stream of water, you're not only, cleaning the water in a sense, but I assume they'll probably put it back in when they're done with it. But you can get a very valuable mineral out of that. Will it be as wealthy, as wealth generating potential of oil and gas? Yeah, very possibly.
I
So you
know
can see why they would be very interested in this. And of course, it says they've been in talks with Ford and Tesla.
what's interesting, and a lot of people don't realize this. I know, I don't know if it's still the case, but I know about 5 years ago, ExxonMobil was the largest retailer in the United States. They did more retail sales than Walmart, and people are like, "What?" But there's a lot more Exxon stations than there are Walmarts, and
Yeah,
you have the fuel costs combined with all of the stuff that people pay for in the shops, and I'm assuming we're going to start seeing more carryover of those stations into they're going to have to adapt and put in charging stations to kind of match, and so
yeah,
they
yeah,
that
yeah.
trap.
That's going. But yeah, but I thought it was interesting. The article points out that they haven't actually done any drilling at this time. They haven't begun any recovery of it, but they're looking to the future and they see the future, going out the next 25, 30 years is gradually, shifting away from dependence on petroleum, just simple economics. And not only that, but of course you've got, political forces that are accelerating, that situation as well. So
Well,
yeah,
we
so
we definitely we definitely need more of the battery components to be sourced in the United States.
Yeah,
Too many are sourced outside the country where it's easier, and maybe the EPA rules aren't the same as they are in the United States. It's easier to go through different things. But here they're talking about collaborating with Tetra Technologies to, well, they use the word exploit, which I find is kind of an interesting choice of words. 6,100 acres of lithium rich brine in Arkansas.
yeah.
Exxon acquired 100,000 acres in Arkansas earlier this year from Galvanic Energy.
Well,
Which,
let's hope, yeah, that in doing that they do it in in a responsible manner. I would assume once you pull that out and extracted the lithium, that they don't just simply take that water and dump it into the local watershed. If it's still not potable or suitable for the environment, I would hope that they re-inject it. And to me, that would make sense. Put it back in, let that water, mix with the ground, with the minerals in the strata below the surface of the earth, and let it come back up and keep using that as a vehicle to extract that lithium in a responsible way. I mean, there's complaints about a great deal of the lithium comes from the Atacama Desert, down in what's the triangle that's Bolivia and Chile and Argentina. And there are concerns about how that's done and the impact it has on the indigenous people and the availability of water, and a lot of concerns about that, which I think are necessary. So if Exxon does this, let's pray to God that they see the light and do it in an environmentally responsible way.
so our next article is from Slash Gear. It's talking about why electric vehicles are such a tough sell in rural areas. This seems a little bit, more obvious to some people that maybe they're too far away, but that doesn't really it doesn't really make sense. I mean, even if you live far out, you still have to go to a gas station. You can just as easily charge your car at home. It doesn't really change that.
Yeah,
But those in big cities are familiar with the rat race. Services and stores are densely packed in the cities, and when you're out in the country, they're not quite the same. What does this mean for electric cars? Well, one of the things is I don't see where the difficulty is charging rurally. Most people aren't charging at charging stations. Most people are charging at
yeah.
home. And but I think there's
What do they?
still that perception.
Yeah, what do they run their welder on in their shop?
Right.
You
Right.
know,
No, I get it. And you know,
I think the point. I think the point they're making here. I try when I post these things. I try to post articles, not just articles that are favorable to electric vehicles, but also try to post articles that are less favorable to give people a sense of what are the extremes here. What are the poles of this particular topic. And I think the larger factor here just simply is this is new technology. We as a people, as a critter of this earth, we are reluctant, resistant to change. There has
yes.
to be some really compelling reason why we're going to abandon something that we've grown up with. I mean, most of us, have grown up, in an automobile-driven culture. Um, so, we're comfortable with it. We know where the gas stations are. We know how to insert our credit card in the machine, all those things. Um, so I think this is more not so much a technical problem as it is a cultural, ingrained attitude that I don't know, this is new. And if I buy this thing and it's expensive, because, cars are like the second most expensive thing that we invest in as a people.
Right.
And so, if you're going to be prudent and circumspect with how you spend your money, what you do want to get something where, you're going to be stuck out in the middle of a cornfield somewhere and no place to charge your car. how people might be thinking about this. So I think that it'll come, it'll happen, and there needs to be and efforts are being made to make charging more available in the rural areas. So, but yeah, it's just anytime you want to make a major change like of this nature, it's going to take time.
Oh, no
The
doubt.
problem is, do we have the time? Do we have the time to wait 100 years to make the transition, or do we need to make it a lot sooner? And that's a debate that probably is above my pay grade.
Well, let's get into this is kind of one of the funnier ones. The Rivian CEO
Yeah,
says buying an internal combustion engine vehicle is like building
speaking
a
of
horse
which,
barn in 1910.
yeah.
Um, I'm sure people still build horse barns, but just not as many, right? You
Well,
know,
yeah.
but
Well, you and I've had this discussion about what was happening with horses at the turn of the previous century, right?
yes, now cars
Two,
solve
two,
the horse
two
problem.
centuries, 2 centuries ago, actually.
Yes, yes,
And all the pardon my language. I hope we don't get banned for this, but all the horse shit
yeah,
and the urine that the horse put out, and the horse diseases they had in the I think it was late 1880s. There was an equine disease that went around and felled thousands of horses, and so they had to find a way to dispose of all of those. So the invention of the automobile was a godsend
yes,
to Americans, to big Eastern American cities, because it got rid of all of that, horse manure.
yes,
It eliminated the jobs of the guys that went around and scooped it up, but I'm sure
yes.
they were probably happy to do something else.
Probably, probably. It is funny to think about the jobs that go out when new new technology comes around, you
Right.
know. So there were no more horse carriage repairs. I'm sure they all became auto mechanics, though.
Very very possibly,
It would seem
very
like the likely
possibly.
transition, right?
They
Um,
went from that to motorcycles, and from motorcycles they went to either cars or airplanes. So
Here's what he said. I think the reality of buying a combustion powered vehicle in light of the policy that's coming is sort of like building a horse barn in 1910, Scaringe said. Like, imagine buying a Chevy Suburban in 2030. Like, what are you going to do with that, right? In 10 years, like the gas stations will be slowly disappearing. It's just weird. Now, I fully expect there to be a fully electric Suburban or something. It'll be hybrid. And I've had this discussion before. I think we're going to see a lot more hybrid technologies before we really see the complete carryover to EV. And I think that's a lot easier for people to wrap their head around, is
well,
to
yeah, because it's
transition to hybrids and plug-in hybrids.
right, exactly. Well, with respect to plug-in hybrids only have a value to environmentally and to you economically if you plug it in. Because what they found with many plug-in hybrid owners is they don't plug them in.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so if you're going to get the benefit of environmental benefit of that plug-in hybrid, please plug it in. You can do it with a 110 power outlet. I plugged in my Fiat 500 electric car, and for 3 years I operated off a 110 outlet. So it
Nice.
works. You can do it. So plug it in. The question that has been around for a long time is, does it make sense to carry around all that extra weight of an internal combustion engine and all that goes with it, plus an electric drive and a battery system and the inverters, and the chart and all of that? Does it make sense to go around carrying all that weight? Yeah, okay, for some people in some driving situations, it does. But for a lot of people, other than the fact that they take what, 2 or 3 trips a year, to go see their, relatives in the next state, most people, the average person puts on 30 miles a day. That's the reality. So, do you need to be lugging around all that weight and complexity? That's a decision that each person has to make. Personally, I have an electric car, but I also, because it's paid for, it'll do what I need to do. I also own a hybrid. Now it sits most of the time, unless my wife wants to go off, and do some shopping and things of that nature. The hybrid sits most of the time, but we took a trip recently to Des Moines. We
Mhm.
took the hybrid, and still got 45, 50 miles per gallon. So everybody's situation a little bit different. And so for some people, a hybrid is going to make sense. Please, if you buy a plug-in hybrid, plug it in. Plug it in. Use that battery.
Well, one thing on the hybrids, the batteries are smaller, so you're not carrying a lot of battery weight, and the electric drive engine isn't that heavy to start with, and they tend to be low horsepower gas motors when they are.
Yeah, in the Prius, it's a four-cylinder with a CVT transmission, and the battery is 1.6 kilowatts. So it's really, all it is the way I like to describe it is you're just adding an extra two cylinders when you need them to that four-cylinder engine, because you're coming in and you're giving a little electric assist, to boost. Maybe kind of like thinking of like having a turbocharger, on a gas engine. So that electric is only giving you that little bit extra boost. And there are times when you're kind of in a cruising mode where the motor runs rather than the gasoline engine. I mean, the Prius is brilliant. I drove the very first Prius in the United States in 1997, and I drove the very first Prius in Nebraska in 1998. I'm familiar with the technology, and I've owned two hybrids, so I know the technology. But I will guarantee you that once you drive an electric, most people find you're not going back. You're not going back. It's so much more. It's like, I like to describe this. It's like going from a piston engine airliner, if you're old enough to remember DC-6s and DC-7s and Strata, Boeing Strato cruisers. I've flown in all those, and going to a jet, because the difference is phenomenal. And again, once you've had the opportunity to drive an electric, consuming it meets your needs, how you're living your life, most people find that they don't want to go back.
All right. Well, well, Bill,
Are we done?
yeah, I think that wraps up our show
Yeah,
today. Want to thank
good.
everybody. Want to thank you for coming on today. I'm going to go ahead and end